Hello and welcome back to the Volunteer Income Tax Training Series. My name is Chris Moon. I am an Associate Teaching Professor at Iowa State University in the Ivy College of Business. This video is going to focus on the child tax credit and credit for other dependents. I will warn you right now that in looking through these slides that were on the IRS website, they are using an incorrect amount for the child tax credit. It was increased to $2,200 for 2025, and all of this information on here shows 2000. So as I'm doing the lecture, I will change the amount to 2200 instead of 2000 as I'm saying it, but just know that the slides are going to be inaccurate in that amount. All right, so the child tax credit is a tax credit that allows taxpayer to claim up to $2,200 per child, and it is a refundable credit. If they claim the child tax credit but don't qualify for the full amount, they may be able to take the refundable additional child tax credit by completing Schedule 8812. So actually, TaxSlayer will do that for you. It will calculate if you put in, the taxpayer, all of their qualifying dependents and children, and if you fill out all of the information, TaxSlayer is automatically going to calculate for you the full amount of the child tax credit and the full amount that is refundable to the taxpayer. The taxpayer must be the child must be the taxpayer's dependent in order to qualify for the child tax credit, and the child must also meet certain criteria in order to qualify for the credit. If you look in section G of your 4012, this chart right here is clearly outdated because it is, I can see in number 4, it's referring to 2023. So I'm just going to kind of go through these qualifications for you because it's important to ask the taxpayer these questions to make sure they get the appropriate credit. All right, so if you are looking to see if someone qualifies for the child tax credit or the credit for other dependents, you will need to look at page G7 of your 4012. Is the person your qualifying child dependent? If yes, you can go on to the next step. If you want to see if they qualify as your child dependent, you can go back to tab C in your 4012. Table 1 shows who those dependents are. Does the child have a Social Security number, ITIN, or adoption taxpayer identification number? If yes, you can go on to the next step. Was the child a U.S. citizen, U.S. national, or U.S. resident alien? If yes, go to step 4. And then the next step is the child under 17 at the end of 2025? So they have to be 16 or younger in order to qualify for the child tax credit. If the answer to that is no, then you can claim the credit for other dependents for that child. If the child is under 17 at the end of 2025, then you have to ask the question, does this child have a Social Security number valid for employment issued before the due date of the return? So in order to get the child tax credit, they have to have a Social Security number. The child tax credit is limited based on income. If the modified adjusted gross income is above $400,000 for married filing jointly or $200,000 for all other filing statuses, the child tax credit starts to phase out. So TaxSlayer will calculate that for you, but it will calculate the amount of the credit, and if there is a phase out amount, it will calculate it, but sometimes the taxpayer doesn't understand why why they don't get certain credits or deductions. So it's important for us to understand that there are those phase outs. Obviously, for the Volunteer Income Tax Clinic, our income guideline is much less than these phase out amounts, so we shouldn't have to worry about that $200,000 and $400,000 income amounts. TaxSlayer is automatically going to calculate this credit for you, but Schedule 8812 is the document that is going to be produced by the program. So once you have the tax credit figured out and you see for your client that it's on there, if you want to explain to the client or show them how it was calculated, just pull up that Form 8812 and you can go through that with the client to describe how that credit is calculated. If a taxpayer doesn't get the full $2,000 of the child tax credit, they may qualify for the refundable additional child tax credit. If the taxpayers have earned income over $2,500, the credit is the lesser of 15% of their earned income that's more than $2,500, or the unused amount of the child tax credit. Again, TaxSlayer is going to calculate this for us, so these explanations are simply to help you just describe it to the client. So if you have a taxpayer with children who are 17 or older, they may qualify for the credit for other dependents. So if they don't qualify for the $2,200 child tax credit, then they may qualify for the $500 credit for other dependents. The dependent must be a U.S. citizen, U.S. national, or resident of the U.S., and they must have a valid ID number. That could be an ATIN, an ITIN, or a Social Security number. Okay. The $500 is non-refundable, so it can reduce your tax bill, but it cannot, if there's excess, it can't be refunded to the taxpayer. Again, I know I keep coming back to the fact that I want you to make sure you're looking at the intake form, but the bottom part of page 1 of the intake form shows you the information that the client has filled out about the people living in their household. And it's really important in this shaded area that you go through and ask these questions of the taxpayer before you start the return, just to make sure that any credits or deductions or dependents that are listed are done correctly. All right, so child tax credit allows the taxpayer to claim a tax credit of up to $2,200 per child. Again, that child needs to be under 17 at the end of 2025. And in order to get that child tax credit, they do need a Social Security number. If the child is not eligible for the child tax credit, if the dependent is not eligible for that, they may be eligible for this non-refundable $500 credit for other dependents. All right, thank you.